Mrs. Dalem's mother was a friend of Mr. Dalem's father, and they corresponded during the war. And then Mrs. Dalem's mother died, so she took over the correspondence. And then Mr. Dalem's father died, and young Mr. Dalem took over the correspondence. One day he just said, why don't you come to the U.S. and, check it out, start life over. Mr. Dalem was in the poultry business. Soon after she got here, she said, you're a chef, and I hate poultry farming. She said, it's disgusting. She said, the smell and it's just a horrible, horrible thing. So their plan was to build the biggest banquet hall in Brattleboro. And they built the biggest banquet hall with a dining room, but the town wouldn't give them the permit without having rooms to rent an inn. And so this was the original building, the banquet hall, the dining room, and the 6 rooms. It's more German than anything you'd find in Germany. And it's because Mrs. Dalem sort of recreated her childhood memories, and nothing changed. She made the curtains that are hanging in the dining room of the banquet hall. She made them herself. And like visiting your grandmother's house again, like everything's got a story, and everything here has a story.
Already in Vermont, we have one of the tightest real estate markets in the country. And what that means for this community is that on any given day, there may be 1 or 2 vacancies in the rental market. And then when we had COVID descend upon us, it really exacerbated the situation because folks that were experiencing homelessness really needed to get into shelter quickly, and there really wasn't anywhere for them to go. The housing market could not absorb that many people in such a short period of time. So folks ended up in motels and hotels, which is a really great short-term solution.
Early on in the summer, working with advocates along with partners, which was the Housing Trust, started to formulate this idea of proposing using some CRF funds, Corona Relief Funds, for purchasing a motel or some sort of establishment that was already built, because to build new housing in a short timeline is just not feasible.
It feels like quite an honor to have purchased the property knowing the legacy that we are inheriting. The time that I spent with Mrs. Dalem in the negotiations and leading up to the purchase was really inspiring. I got to know her quite well. I got to hear a lot of her story, and I got to hear a lot of the stories here on the property. So when you think about the future, we really need to honor the past as we think about that.
And so the model that we're using here is permanent supportive housing. And permanent supportive housing has 3 primary components. The first is the housing itself, the walls and the roof. The second is some sort of subsidy or rental assistance to help people be able to make rent, but it also helps the property to cash flow, and so it benefits both the tenant and the property owners. And the third piece is the supportive services.
There's not an expectation of being ready or deserving or worthy of a home. It's about placing people in a home and making sure that services are available and accessible, and people tend to thrive when there's somebody there that can provide support when they need it. And then kind of takes a step back when they're thriving and don't need that level of support.
Why can we not be sober? I just want to start this over.
I had a very interesting childhood. I grew up in this religious cult in Connecticut, Brother Julius Shack now. So when I was 13, my parents divorced. I moved to the Boston area, about 19 years old. I think it was like right around my 19th birthday. Me and my dad had a falling out. I went back to Connecticut, stayed with my mom. So from like 21 to like 45 as I am today, like it's been, on and off dealing with homelessness. So I might have a couple beers once a month or something, like compared to how I was, so it's like, here I am, like doing well, not spending money on cocaine or dope, and I'm still struggling. And it gets very frustrating watching people just kind of take this for granted. I just don't want to be that person, and I just want to move forward. But so just all I can do is one day at a time, just hope that something falls into place, That's about it.
And so we learned a lot about kind of what service provision looks like, how to best support people, how to do so in a way that feels accessible to people but doesn't feel like it sets up a requirement for people to participate to be able to stay in their home.
It is a evidence-based practice that is proven to end homelessness.